What's up, fight fans? Top of the morning to everybody. This is Kurt DeVille with Counterpunch Boxing News, and I have some new news concerning Mike Tyson and Deontay, the Bronze Bomber Wilder. You know, there's been a debate for the last 2 years, ever since Deontay Wilder has came out and said that he would beat a prime Mike Tyson. And, and also on top of that, when he criticized Mike Tyson's resume, and really did some critiquing of his own of Mike Tyson's resume, and he really criticized it to a way that it seemed like a facade. Now, just reading this article, and this is by the Sports Bible, and it states that Deontay Wilder's KO record over Mike Tyson proves he's the real baddest man on the planet. Okay. Deontay Wilder has boasted a better KO record than boxing legend Mike Tyson in a side-by-side comparison of their first 42 professional fights. Okay. The 35-year-old KO artist has also claimed that he has a better resume than Iron Mike and the true GOAT of the heavyweight division. Okay. The former WBC champ holds an impressive 42 wins in his 44 professional fights, with 1 draw and 1 loss to Tyson Fury. Okay. Whereas ahead of Wilder's victory over Luis Ortiz, ESPN dropped the comparison between the Bronze Bomber and Tyson. Tyson completed in 42 professional bouts by the age of 24, with Wilder notching his 42 fight record up at the age of 34. Okay. But Tyson, who is the youngest boxer to win a heavyweight title, suffered 1 defeat in his first 42 fights to Buster Douglas. Okay, if you guys can remember that in Japan. Wilder can also boast a superior knockout record over the baddest man on the planet with his 40 KOs against Tyson's 36 at the time. So, all right. So we have Mike Tyson, which was 24 years of age by the time he had 42 fights. And Wilder was 34. All right. If we can compare fairly, Mike Tyson, okay, was 24 years of age. Wilder was 34. Now, you look at that and you might say, well, Wilder had more knockouts, which he did. He had 40 knockouts. He had 4 more knockouts than Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson had 36. But then by that time, though, he had the WBA, the WBC, the IBF, and the lineal. Okay, so not only did Mike accomplish more, he had 3 more belts, 3 more titles, 3 more acknowledgments, 2 more sanctioning bodies. Okay, and he was 10 years younger when he did it. Okay, so when you compare it like that, you compare, it's like this. Compare the 4 extra knockouts that Wilder has compared to, because they both had the WBC, right? So that's the even mark. He had 4 more knockouts, but the only thing that Wilder had besides that was 4 more knockouts compared to the WBA, the IBF, and the lineal. So it's like, okay, well, if you wanted to compare the knockouts, if you were saying, okay, who had the more knockouts? Deontay Wilder. But it took him 10 more years to do so. Tyson did it in 24. Wilder, it took him 34. Okay, so, and then at that, when the accomplishments, if you want to look at the accomplishments, you would definitely say Mike Tyson. Because Mike Tyson had done more. He had unified again and again and again, then became the lineal because he unified. Okay. Wilder had yet to do that. In fact, never done that. He only had the WBC, which he had for 5 years and 10 title defenses, but he never unified anything. So if you wanted to look at knockouts alone, it's Wilder. But for age, accomplishments, and really overall ambition, it had to be Mike Tyson. Now, the thing about Wilder is Wilder didn't fight these guys. And if you wanted to, okay, Wilder fought Tyson Fury. Tyson Fury, to some people's mind, was the lineal champion. Now, for that, Wilder didn't even really acknowledge that this year. As you know, when he beat him, he's like, you can have all that shit back because I don't care about it. Okay, fair enough. But at the end of the day, people acknowledged him as being the lineal champion. So, but he didn't never beat the lineal champion. Okay, Tyson was the guy that got all those guys out of there. He beat those guys at that time. And then understand, the 80s was a lull of fighters that really Mike Tyson was just a supreme guy. He was like Roy Jones in the 90s in Roy Jones' respected weight class. There wasn't a lot of people, or he was just so much better than all the rest that it didn't look like he had very good competition. So then you can understand why Wilder would criticize Mike Tyson for the people that he fought. But, of course, he did it a lot younger, and he was feared, and he had one loss, but both of them have one loss, right? So you can't go there, right? So you could say, well, Wilder at the age of 24, didn't have a loss at the time. But at the time, who was he fighting? And at the time, what did he have? You see what I'm saying? So a lot of people don't want to look at it like that. Wilder's 34 years old, from the comparison. Mike Tyson's 24. The right thing, the decent thing to do was, okay, if that's the case, if you think you're the baddest man on the planet, Wilder, what were you doing at 24? Counterpunch. That's the thing. It's the age. See, they want to talk about the fights in total, but let's talk about what they were doing at a particular age. Mike was knocking motherfuckers out as a kid. Wilder was still taking those baby steps assigned by Shelley Finkel in that management company, that was in charge of him. That's what he was doing. How many fights did he have when he was 24? Hell, he started late. You see what I'm saying? So he just got out of the Olympics at that time. So again, that's another trump over Wilder, because Wilder wasn't doing that when he was 24. You had to send 10 more years to even make a comparison to what Mike Tyson did. And even when you did it, you only had 4 more knockouts, as opposed to someone that had 36 and you had 40. But then he had the lineal, the WBA, the IBF, and the WBC, which Wilder had. So he had 3 more titles over Wilder. So if anything, okay, in short, if anything could be said about the comparison, Wilder had this type of competition. He had these dudes that he could have fought, which, not saying he won't fight them, but up until the 42nd fight, that's what we're talking about. We're not talking about Wilder's whole career, so it's not about bashing his competition at the point. But at the point up to 42 wins, he only fought Luis Ortiz and Tyson Fury twice. However, he did beat Dominic Breazeale, so you got to throw him in there. So with those 3 guys, that make his record, but that's the resume. That's not the wins. Okay, so if you look at it like that, this is what we're dealing with. But then again, Mike was 24 years of age, so that was before the Holyfields and all that stuff. So so it's kind of even when you're talking about opposition too, right? Because Mike, again, was at a time was at a time frame where he was able to beat these guys and dominate these guys. It was almost like showcase fights. You go, oh, Mike Tyson fights on. You leave the room, you come back, somebody's knocked out. Not saying Wilder didn't have that. Look how he did Breazeale. He knocked Breazeale out before you knew it. First round KO. He took that boy out. He hit that man, and I don't know, he did something bad to him, right? So, so comparison for being the baddest man on the planet, you got to give it to Mike Tyson, because he's accomplished more by that age. And if you wanted to look at it at age, which they're not looking at it in age, but it's only fair to do so because Mike was so young. But being the baddest man on the planet, I think if you want to label yourself that, I think you should be called the second baddest man. And I think it's only, and I know Wilder, with the confidence that he had, he called himself the baddest man on the planet. But then if there's already a guy that's labeled the baddest man on the planet, I would say you're the baddest man on the planet, part 2, or the second coming. I wouldn't want to compare myself to Mike Tyson, especially when he's not fighting in this era. But anyway, you guys tell me what you think about this article. I'll leave it below, let you guys check it out. Who is really the baddest man on the planet, Mike Tyson or Deontay Wilder? Leave your comments below. Please subscribe, hit that bell icon, and you guys been Counterpunch. Peace.